We hope you picked up your allergy medication so you can watch our Kickstarter Pickstarters for the week of April 15th, 2019.
Starting off with a doozy this week, it's Vampire the Masquerade Heritage from Nice Game Publishing, based on the Vampire the Masquerade franchise, which we've had news of lately, from a new video game coming out to another new type of board game coming out that's going to be on Kickstarter later this year. This one is a legacy game. It is competitive, and multiple players are going to be taking on the roles of different vampire clans, trying to recruit new members and increase their prestige, their power, as years go on. So as the game goes on, you'll be recruiting different cards which represent people, and they'll join your clan, and depending on where they're from, what their background is, they'll add different powers and abilities to your clan. And then there are also going to be separate boards that you're worrying about on the side that have to do with good and evil, different territories that players have control of, and depending on who you recruit and when, those different boards will be affected, and you will also have a personal mission that you're trying to complete, which usually has to do with one of those other boards. So you're really trying to think about, as you're playing, which cards should I recruit that are the best for me and my long-term goals. And then you're thinking about future games, because this is a legacy game. So as you play, you're going to be opening new envelopes almost every game, maybe every game, to find new cards, new rules, new abilities. And for example, you may turn a player, or a card, excuse me, not a player, a card into a vampire. And in future games, they're still going to be a vampire. So you're having a direct impact on things, and the future games take place over hundreds of years, so you're experiencing this long story arc. It certainly sounds like an ambitious kind of game, but one that doesn't look too super complex. Like I said, there's one board that shows you who you can recruit, and then there's these sideboards that are like territory and a couple different trackers. But it's not something like Risk or a Pandemic or Seafall, where you have this giant crazy map with all these things going on. See, most of the game, I feel, is in your cards and how they influence your actions. But then again, this is a legacy game, so who knows what happens beyond that intro.
Well, what's interesting is most of the legacy games we've played that I can think of, like even so, Risk and Seafall technically take over, I think, generations or something, but really technology stays the same.
Yeah, Betrayal also is
Betrayal is probably the closest to this one, but like Pandemic's literally within a year. This actually, the legacy can make sense of being like, guess what? We just opened guns now, so that's going to change how you hope your rules are playing and stuff.
Yeah, that makes
But yeah,
sense.
as you said, as Vampire Masquerade, is it just like we're going all in on vampires again?
It's in the zeitgeist right now. I don't know why. Yeah, there was a new version of the RPG too recently.
It all sounds interesting, so I'm not going to complain. But once again, legacy games, so I hope it can do something to make it stand out, because it's hard enough to complete them for us.
Yeah, I think it looks really cool. You can pick it up from this Kickstarter for $67, and there are some Kickstarter exclusive things also that you have to back, like around $100 to get that full set with some extra cards and missions and stuff that you can have. Don't know how worth it those are going to be, but if you need those exclusives, that is your option. Otherwise, check it out. It's Vampire the Masquerade Heritage.
Keeping things on the pricier end, we've got Dungeonology, the Expedition from Ludus Magnus Studios. In this game, you are going to be doing a bit of a dungeon crawl, but instead of gathering items in order to defeat an epic boss, you are actually trying to write your thesis for college. So you'll be exploring and trying to gather facts and learn about the area you are exploring. By gathering certain clues about maybe the lifestyle or other facts, important information, you're going to be able to gather up your stats and be able to increase your abilities. But if your opponent gets ahead of you, you actually go to an exalted form, which makes you stronger as well. There are bosses here, though, and they are not happy with you being there, so they're going to push you around if you invade their territory. I thought this was a really funny Kickstarter because it seems more of a joke on the dungeon crawl, and I like the idea of everyone trying to finish a thesis paper. There's also students you can use, which apparently there's a traitor hidden among them, so then the board will fight you that way. And of course, they also made a solo mode, which is very nice, especially for some of these big games. This is an $89 game with a lot of minis.
That's a cool theme. It's very weird.
It is also it seemed brighter than most of the dungeon crawls I'm used to.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of grass, and the tiles don't seem to match up like just straight square on. Like the path could be up here, so they could be sort of not connected usual. And I like the idea of gathering all the different facts, though. I would love to. I'm sure people have already made it, but I love actually a role-playing game when you actually just, instead of fighting monsters, you have to like observe the Hydra or something.
Yeah, we did. There was one, I think that was a Kickstarter that you sort of had to like study monsters, kind of. I'll have to remember what it is.
It is $89 with a bunch of other expansions, but it could be worth your time. It is Dungeonology.
How about an expansion for Terraforming Mars called Terraforming Mars Turmoil from Stronghold Games? Terraforming Mars, if you don't know, is a competitive game in which players are trying to do what the title says, create a livable environment on Mars by gaining the resources and money that they need and getting points from building special buildings or plant life or all kinds of different cards that you can do crazy things with in that game. The Turmoil expansion, they say, is an expert level expansion, so recommended for people who are very familiar with Terraforming Mars, the base game. And it adds a separate board that has a political angle to it. So now there are, I believe it's 6 different political parties. And the players themselves don't have those parties, but they have pawns that they can place to try to join and influence those parties. And depending on which party is currently the dominant force, different effects may take place, players may have different abilities, and different types of events will come out that change exactly what is going on and how it relates to those political powers. Of course, there's also new cards just for the base Terraforming Mars deck that interact with that board, as well as some new corporations that you can choose from the beginning of the game. So it's this whole other political side game that you are playing and trying to influence and control different parts. And in addition to that, for this Kickstarter only, this is not part of the Turmoil expansion, they're offering special player boards for free if you pick it up, which are indented. They're have 2 layers so that your cubes can fit in them and keep track of the numbers of all your different resources. And if you've played Terraforming Mars, you know how useful that could potentially be.
Yeah. I love the game, and that is actually the playmat. I think is the one problem I have with the game, which is why you can see online some people made their 3D things. So if you're not backing this, I'm backing it for you.
No, that honestly, we have a couple Terraforming Mars expansions, and they seem to make like 2 a year. Like for a game that's not that old, there's a lot of expansions. And at first I was like, I don't know that I need that many more. But the fact that that's on there for free, it's just a $34 expansion, that cinched it for me. I'm definitely gonna.
No, and man, like the base game itself, we both love it. Mm-hmm. I think it's very good, and this sounds really cool. I hope they add a card where you have the Mars exit, where they want to leave Earth, but they can't decide how they're leaving Earth, so you keep delaying it.
I hope they do that too. Check it out right now. It's Terraforming Mars Turmoil.
From Arcanum Worlds, we have Odyssey of the Dragon Lords. This is an RPG with a heavy Greek influence that has a lot of prominent people backing it, including some writers from Mass Effect and designers from from other BioWare games. It's pretty impressive in and of itself. It's supposed to be like a source book to actually run a campaign, like almost this specific story of doing your own Odyssey, but it includes new monsters that don't really appear in a lot of the D&D manuals. This is based on for the 5th edition D&D, but of course it does still have those common beats. I think you're going to have to make probably some of the very similar decisions. I'm pretty sure I saw the sea monster. I forget the name of it, but it looks sort of like the Sarlacc pit from Star Wars, where you have to decide between that or another monster. Mm-hmm. But it, like I said, had a lot of huge names behind it, and the Greek influence sounds really cool. I know some people in the comic section said, like, my friend told me it's God of War D&D I'm in, which I'm like, well, the reason God of War is Norse, but if you are looking for more of that Greek influence, if you have been playing God of War or Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
To be fair, it's one Norse game out of like 5 other Greek games.
Right, but it's been so long since those, so I assumed he's, like, I do love, I think the Greek, like, while original, I think fantasy is pulled heavily from Greek myth, I think diving a bit more into that sounds really cool, and the Odyssey is a really cool journey, and it, like, which is the hero's journey. Like,
yeah, I agree. The Odyssey is awesome. I definitely want to interact with.
And it has Dragon Lords in it, so there's probably more dragons too. So I'm always in. It is a bit more pricier. It's $22 for the PDF, and I believe it was
54.
54, thank you, for the book. And this is early bird, but when we checked it, they had plenty of room. It's probably a little bit more for the regular, but we thought since there was so much for the early bird, there was still time for you to pick that up. But with the size of it, not simply just a book, but designed to be a whole campaign in essence, it seems, I thought that might be worth it. And the art looks amazing, and definitely some of those monsters and races. So if you're looking for more a Homer-inspired journey, then the Dragon Lords is there for you.
Folding Space is a new title from Maple Games, a space pirate themed game where you have literal pirate ships, they look like boats, and you are sailing around to different moons in outer space, trying to gain points by collecting different resources and types of treasures from those different moons. The gimmick of this game, the reason it's called Folding Space, is because each player has this unique type of board that folds out and into itself infinitely. Sort of like one of those fortune teller things kids would make on the playground or something like that. I don't know exactly what the word for it is. You'll see it in the video. That you can just keep folding and different images of different types of cards and symbols will appear. And on everybody's turn at the start of the round, everyone has 10 seconds to try to maneuver that to whatever they want it to be. And depending on what icons are showing, that determines what you can do on your turn. So the player who has the most of a sword symbol may get a sword card, which they can use to attack people. Certain symbols may tell you how much you can move on that turn. And so you're traveling to the different places, picking up whatever's there, and of course there's combat with the other players where you can play different swords and cannons and cards to try to steal from each other as well. It seemed like a neat, cute little idea. Really, it's that I called it a gimmick, and I think it is, but it seems kind of fun where you're folding this board multiple times. And one of the things they said was it's the player. You rotate whoever is the player who counts down from 10 to determine how long you have to do this, and it is not required that they do that in a certain time frame. Like they could count really fast if they want to.
So you can have that one jerk goes 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2.
You could, like if you're like, oh, this is already what I want, I don't need to do anything with it, you could just be like, I'm done, everyone else can go, or something like that. Or you have to decide like, oh, there's like swords, but I really want to try to do something else this turn, so I want to try to turn it. So maybe some neat looking stuff there. It's $39, so kind of a mid-range of prices for games like these. If that sounds fun to you, pirating and spacing, then check it out. It's called Folding Space.
Finally, we have an accessory for all your gamers out there from Game Tea. It is a wallet, specifically the world's finest wallet of holding. This is a wallet designed to be more of a carry-all for not just your money and your ID, but also if you're more of an RPG player for dice, pens, cards, what have you. It is supposed to be about the size of a regular wallet. You can see on their Kickstarter they have a comparison, and it has a bunch of hidden pockets. It comes in a bunch of different designs too, with a really nice embossed like 20-sided die, the dagger, though I'm actually more of a fan of the simple design because I liked the simple black or brown leather with a little 20-sided die in the corner. It goes for $50 because this is a really nice crafted wallet, but has a zipper, which makes it nice because then you can make sure everything stays in there. A lot of hidden pockets and also room for dice and to hold a pen. It seems like a pretty cool thing, especially I think for you because you have a lot of those pocket card games from
Button Shy games,
yeah.
The wallet games. They're literally called wallet games.
You could probably take those cards and fit all of them in there and still have money and stuff.
Now, is the idea that is this thing actually gonna like fit in my pocket, or is it too bulky?
No, it seemed to be, according to them, it's the same size as a regular wallet.
Even
so
with the dice in there and stuff?
Well, the idea of the dice, I think you'd get smaller dice they have, like themselves, that fit in a little tube.
Okay.
That go on the side there. But I mean, I assume with the dice maybe it's a little bit, but it showed them like fitting in the size of the hand. So I'd say like probably on the bigger scale of wallets, and I know most people I know are reducing their wallet size, almost like a phone case is part of it. But I still think this is pretty cool. Sort of nice zip thing, maybe especially if you travel a bit more because you wanted something maybe a bit more sturdy to hold more stuff. I do think it sounds like a really cool accessory. You can take a look which versions fit best for you, and like I said, they have extras for pen or dice, which you don't need to get if you're not planning to use that as your personal D&D carry-on folder. But it still looks like it has plenty of awesome pockets to carry around those pocket games that we mentioned, or they even have a little notebook in case you like to write down your stuff. So that is the world's finest wallet of holding.
those are our official picks, but a couple things I wanted to mention at the end of the show. First, the game Zoocracy relaunched. That's one we did a preview for a couple of months ago, so you may want to take a look at that. We can find that video on our channel elsewhere. Also wanted to just mention the Planet of the Apes board game, which you sent to me when it went up because I'm a big Planet of the Apes fan.
It also launched like just after we did our last Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's a huge miniatures game, but it really, to me, looks like a disaster.
You do also already have a Planet of the Apes game.
I have a Planet of the Apes game. This one is more based on the new movies, and it's really about miniature combat, and like they just put out a rule book in English like 2 days ago, and it's not that good, and it just seems like a thing to get minis for. It's one of those kinds of games. So if you want a bunch of cool Planet of the Apes minis, you maybe still want to check it out. I don't know. Or if you backed any of the other games that we talked about today, if you're going to pick up an expansion for Terraforming Mars, or you want to delve into some RPG territory, let us know in the comments. You can also talk to us on Instagram, social media, Twitter, Facebook, etc. Also in our description right there below. But until we hear from you again, I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
And this was Kickstarter Pickstarter. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome board game content from Roll for Crit.
And please leave a comment. We're lonely.